This is the part 2 of our toe-up sock knitting. Last time we started with a Turkish cast-on and we increased on both sides. We did a little bit of ribbing for the middle of the foot. It's a 2x2 ribbing, and we continue the tube all the way to the cuff. We did a little bit of ribbing, maybe 1 or 2 inches of ribbing at the end. It's up to you. And today we are going to do a stretchy bind off. There are many ways of doing a stretchy bind off. One good looking way is the ribbed bind off. You follow the rib pattern. I have a 1x1 ribbing, knit, purl, and the first one I'm going to show you the ribbed bind off. You have to cut the yarn about 3 to 4 times length of this, the width of your project. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can write it extra just in case. You cut the yarn. And use your needle with the big eye. Thread the yarn through. Now we can start. There are 4 steps in this process. It's kind of like a Kitchener stitch, but this is for the ribbing. It creates very stretchy bind off, and it follows the ribbing pattern, so you'll look pretty too. The first 2 steps is a setup of the 4-step process. It's a step 3 and a step 4 of the 4-step process. First, we need to do the setup for 2 steps. Since the first stitch is a knit stitch, we start with a purl. We knit purlwise, insert the needle purlwise, pull it through and leave it on the needle, and then the second stitch we insert the needle knitwise and pull it through. That's our setup, and then we'll start the process of the 4th step. Okay, the step 1, we knit and take it off the stitch, knit off, and then purl to the second stitch. That's a step 2. The second stitch we purl. So it's knit off, purl, and then the 3rd step is to purl the first stitch, purl off, knit from behind, knit the second stitch from behind. That's the last step, step 4. Between the first and second stitch, we insert the needle from behind, and then knit the second stitch. That's the step 4, the last step. And then we repeat the same process again. We start the process again. The first one is knit off. Step 1, knit off. Step 2, purl the second stitch. Step 3, purl off. Step 4, knit a second stitch from behind, between the first and second stitch first, and then knit a second stitch, and then we keep going. Step 1, knit off, purl the second stitch, purl, and then purl off, purl off, knit the second stitch from behind, between the first and second, knit the second stitch. That's step 4. And we start over again, knit, off, purl the second, purl off, knit the second from behind, and we just keep going until the end. When you are at the end of the needle, you might have only like 1 or 2 stitches. You just rearrange the needle, pull out the needle, so you combine that last stitch with the rest of the stitch, and you can keep going. Now I can start from step 1 again. Knit off, knit off, purl the second, purl off, knit the second one from behind, and we keep going until the end. Here we are at the last few stitches. We just keep repeating the same process. Knit off, purl the second, purl off, knit the second stitch from the back, again knit off, purl the second stitch, purl off, knit the second stitch from the back. Now this is the last stitch, so we have to look for the next stitch that's already bound off, and that's a leg. We try to do it in front of the leg. And go in to this. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want to connect to the first stitch. In the last stitch, we start over again from step 1, knit off, and then we go to the step 2, purl the second stitch. We just try to connect this bound of stitches, so I'll just pick a stitch next to it and pull it through, and that completes the bind off, and we'll weave in the end from the back. Turn it around, you can weave in the yarn through the loops and cut off the tail, and then you have very stretchy bind off. Another way of the stretchy bind off I like, and it's very simple, is Elizabeth Zimmerman's Sewn bind off, and she's a great knitter. She has a lot of books I really like. If you have a chance, you should check out her book. I'm going to show you her sewn bind off, It's the same at the beginning. Cut a piece of yarn about 4 times. This is basically a very simple bind off. You sew 2 stitch forward and 1 stitch back. First you sew 2 stitch forward and 1 stitch back and off the needle. Let the first stitch go off the needle and you just repeat 2 stitch, stitch forward, and then now 1 stitch back and then off the needle, and you just keep repeating. Two stitch forward, 1 stitch back, and off the needle. Now we are at the last few stitches. We just keep going the same process. 2 stitches forward, one stitch back, and off the needle, 2 stitch forward, 1 stitch back, off the needle, 2 stitch forward. We only have 1, so we have to pick another one, the next stitch. I like to pick the, you see there's a V, I'll pick one leg of the V. And 1 stitch back. I already take it off the needle. That's the last stitch. And pull. And we just have to weave in the end through the back, on the back side. And then we're done. So this is a finished bind off. Elizabeth Zimmerman Sewn bind off. It's still stretchy. It still looks nice and very stretchy. And this is the ribbed bind off. To me this is the really pretty one, but it takes a little bit more concentration. And the next step is to cut open and make the after sewed here.